This conference
So
will
let us
now be
begin.
recorded.
So let us begin with a little introduction. We will be starting this book on Shabbat, but a little introduction. In the Kiddush, right, when we're bringing in the Shabbat, we say that it is Zecher Lietziat Mitzrayim, in order to remember the Exodus from Egypt, and it also is Zecher Libriat HaOlam, a remembrance of creation of the world, which means that Shabbos sits at the very, very foundation of Jewish belief. The foundations of Jewish belief, we would say, are God as a creator, but not a creator who then went AWOL, but God as a creator who stays involved in the world. Creation, Zecher, Lebriat Olam, Lamase, Zecher Lamase Breshit, we say, Zikaron, Lamase Breshit, as a remembrance of the act of creation. That is our fundamental belief in God as a creator. And Yitziat Mitzrayim, of course, is God's involvement in the world. These are the two pillars of Jewish belief. And as we've mentioned before, we don't just believe, we don't go onto a mountaintop and meditate, we do our beliefs. Shabbat is not a day of rest. God did not rest on the seventh day. Resting is, I'm tired. God did not get the least bit tired after 6 days of creation. He did not rest on the seventh day. If it were a day of rest, it would be a lot more restful for me to drive, get into my car, and take the 5-minute drive to shul as opposed to the 20-minute 1.1 mile walk. It's not taking away from my resting in any way for me to flip on a light switch. So what is it then a day of? How is it that we demonstrate our belief in God as the creator and God is involved by our desisting from all the things that we desist from doing on Shabbat? We stop creating. God did not rest. God stopped creating. And we get ourselves very involved in our day-to-day, week-to-week, and we're supposed to be very involved in creating, in doing, in God kept changing the world, altering the world according to his will. On the seventh day, he stopped altering the world to his will. On Shabbat, the way that we do our belief in God as the creator who stopped creating on the seventh day is that we step back and we stop trying to change the world. We stop trying to alter the world around us to meet our needs, and we appreciate, we bask in the incredible creation that God has made. So the light switch is not work, it's not tiring, but the light switch is very much my controlling, my altering the world around me to suit my needs. And that is what we stop doing. So by doing that, we do our belief in God as the creator. Okay? So all the laws that we're going to be, and it's so important as we get involved in all of these detailed laws, not to lose track of what it is that we are trying to do. And with every mitzvah, we're trying to connect to God. And with different mitzvot, there's a different emphasis on what aspect of connection is being forged. And Shabbat, it is this appreciation, this acknowledgement of God as the creator of the world who stays involved in the world. So when people say somewhat mockingly, "What, you think God really cares if you're going to turn on a light switch?" Right? And the answer is, it's not for God. It's for us. It's for us to realize and recognize and appreciate that we are basking in this incredible world of God's. And when I'm too busy trying to change it, then it's hard for me to appreciate it. And then there are all these added fringe benefits. And certainly when people say, well, isn't it outdated? Certainly in the world that we live in today, where we are so inundated with the beeps and the tweets and the who knows what's every minute, that the cell phone doesn't stop buzzing, and if you mute it, it still buzzes at you the whole time. And you have how many new emails in the past, and how many WhatsApp groups, besides the Jewish Journey, that's a good one. But besides that one, how many WhatsApp groups do we have? And trying to keep it becomes a full-time position. It's a full-time job. And there have been many articles in secular publications about how the world needs the Jewish Sabbath, how healthy it would be, how balanced it would be if people could just unplug for those 24, 25 hours. And it is a gift. And there's also the added benefit that comes along, that as we're unplugging, as we're not altering the world, we have a chance to get to know the people around us. Right? The joke that the television wasn't working one Sunday afternoon. So the guy writes to his friends, there was a very nice lady sitting next to me. I asked her name, I got to speak to her. It was his wife, of course, right? But Sunday football is like, whoa. So there are, of course, all of the side benefits of it's time to spend with family. It's time to spend with community. It's time to spend with God. And that is the absolute beauty of the beautiful Shabbat that we have. But it all starts with being careful with the light switch, with all those things, to make sure that it is a proper Shabbat. Yeah. Okay. With that introduction, let us begin let's go straight to page 13, chapter 1, the laws of Erev Shabbat. Okay. Page 15. Okay. We prepare for the advent of Shabbat, right? Like when we're expecting an important guest. Okay. Actually, yeah. So the pasuk says, "Lo tevaru eish b'chol moshvotechem." You should not burn any fires in your. We don't light fires. We don't on Shabbat, and I believe the Zohar says that's a reference to the fire of anger, right? With all of the preparations, and sometimes things get a little bit tense, right? As the time is winding down, lo tavaru esh, let there not be any fires of anger, all right? To make sure that we're going into Shabbat with love. Mm-hmm. That it's not like, oh no, you didn't take a shower yet? Yeah, one needs to be careful to make sure that we keep the perspective. Okay. Right, it's important for everyone, page 16, to try to do something for Shabbat, even if you're not doing the main thing. We have a very nice custom in my house that I try Saturday. I don't always get to it, but I try on Saturday night already to set the candles for next week. So I'm like, so Shabbos has ended, but let's get ready for the next one, right? Let's right away. Let's start our preparations for the next one. Okay. Number 18, page 18, right? Our sages tell us, one second, guys. Our sages tell us that all of the person's sustenance, parnasah, earnings, are all set beginning of the year, but there are two areas where you don't have to worry. It comes from a separate account. And what are those two areas? One of these is the expenses of Shabbat and Yom Tov, and the other one is for children's Torah study. That comes from a separate account. So you don't have to worry, the Gemara tells us. Right? That's not going to affect your bottom line. Right? That comes from elsewhere. Okay? And therefore a person can freely purchase delicacies and special food items for Shabbat without worrying that they are diminishing their disposable income. Okay, good. Now this is one of my favorite mitzvot, number 19. It is a mitzvah to taste the dishes while they are being prepared to ensure that they are appetizing. Okay, that's something that I try to be very, very careful for. Page 20, many people.
Right, Rabbi?
I'm sorry?
No blessings while you're tasting.
Oh, so that's interesting. So if you're actually going to be swallowing, then we will make a bracha on the tasting. If we're just tasting and then spitting out, we will not make a bracha. But if we're swallowing, right, then we will be making a bracha. Good. Baking challahs for Shabbos. That was so interesting. The bread on Shabbos, we call it challah. Where does the word challah come from?
I knew this.
Isn't kala, right? I don't know.
Yeah. So where does the challah? So actually,
From my wife.
I'm sorry.
It has to do with.
Okay. So really, we have to be mafrish challah. We need to separate from the loaf, and that will be given as a gift to the Kohen. Nowadays, we still need to separate part of it as challah, but we don't give it to a Kohen for two reasons. A non-Kohen who eats that is a very serious sin. Now, everyone who says he's a Kohen today, he says he's a Kohen. We think he's a Kohen. He thinks he's a Kohen. But we don't have that, what's called the yichus. We don't have the books of lineage, the proof of lineage that he really is a Kohen. Furthermore, a Kohen is ritually impure, cannot eat these sanctified foods. Now, ritually impure is because we've all been to cemeteries, we've all dealt with the cemeteries, right? So we've all become impure. So Kohanim are not allowed to eat it. Nevertheless, we still need to separate it. And and normally the women do this? Well, what is done with that which we separate? It's burnt. Why is it being burnt? To make sure that no one inadvertently eats it. So the challah is actually the part that's taken off. We eat everything but the challah. So why do we call it our Shabbos challah? We're eating everything but the challah. When Natalie was running a girls' camp for about 10 years, and there was this guy, Richie. Richie was great. Richie was a real Italian from Brooklyn, and he would not Jewish, but he would do a lot of the driving if we needed someone to drive. So he had a car there, and he liked to do driving. So we would hire him to do a lot of the driving for camp. He's called me Hey, Rabbi, how you doing? So Richie tells me that he went to one of the towns in upstate New York where there's a kosher bakery. He goes, Rabbi, I don't know what's going on. I went there and I asked, and I said, hey, give me some holly bread. So they said, what type of holly bread? What does that mean, Rabbi? How many types are there? I said, I don't know. Give me the regular. So that was Richie and his holly bread, right? But again, so we're calling it challah. It's everything but challah. So why do we call it challah? What's important to us, my friends, is the mitzvah that we do with it. Since the mitzvah that we do with it is the separation of challah, so we call the whole bread our holly bread, our challah, our Shabbat challah, our Shabbos challah. Okay? But that's actually, so that's why there's a mitzvah. It's customary women try to make challah for Shabbos. Natalie does not do it every week, but she will do about 10 pounds of challah and then wraps them, freezes them, and then we'll keep using that. Okay? Are ladies familiar with making challah, doing challah? Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. And of course, on page 21, one is required to separate a piece, the challah, from the dough made of the five grains, rye, oats, barley, or spelt. One may not eat any product made of dough before a piece was separated from it. Okay. How to separate challah, we're not going to go into now. Okay. Cleaning the house, preparing it for Shabbat. Yeah, you want to, again, you want the house to be nice and clean and orderly for Shabbat, but you don't want to turn it into a, did you clean your, right? Lo tevaru eish. Don't let the fire burn, my friends, right? It's better to have a calm, somewhat messy house into Shabbos than to have an immaculate, tense, angry, resentful house going into Shabbos. Okay? Shabbat clothing, yeah, right? One should try to have nice clothing for Shabbat, right? If you go, right, if you're going to meet a king or a queen, you get dressed up nicely. You're going to a wedding, you get dressed up nicely. The Shabbat queen is arriving, right? We get dressed up nicely. One should wash oneself with hot water, 26, right? Right? Some of the custom is more men than more than women to immerse themselves in a mikveh in honor of Shabbat. We don't have a men's mikveh here in Irvine. We keep our mikveh in a pristine condition for the women. Okay, cutting nails. Okay, also right. We cut our nails in preparation. Right, we get ourselves right trim for those, shave, whatever one does. You want to go into Shabbos. Okay.
Last question.
Yes.
Is there a quick explanation about the order of cutting the nails?
Okay. Okay. You caught me. All right. So page 27 on the bottom there. Okay. So if you see, basically the way the order to cut the nails is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? The idea is, I'm sure there's more to it, but the more basic idea is that there's something called the tahara. The tahara literally means purification, and that's when a person dies, the body is prepared for burial. That includes cutting the nails, washing the body, clothing, cleansing the body, clothing the body in the special garments that we have for a person who has died, and that is called the burial shrouds, the tachrichin, and that completely covers the person. You don't see any of the any of the skin of the person at all, their little booties, so to speak. It's all right, and the face, everything is covered, and that is the tahara process. Very important when a Jewish person dies to make sure that they have that proper tahara, the preparation for the burial. So part of that includes cutting the nails, and there they cut them just in order. Right? So we don't want to do it in the way that it's done for those who have died. So therefore, when we cut our nails, we don't cut them straight in order, but we bounce around a bit. So if you go one, right, going this way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that way you've avoided doing any of them in order, right? 1, right, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 1, 3, 5. All right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I basically had a question.
Oh.
No,
Yes.
Great question.
Oh, okay. One should, 28, we show honor for Shabbos by not eating a large meal on Friday afternoon, right? Because you want to go into Shabbos with an appetite. You want to be a little bit hungry going in and really looking forward to that wonderful Shabbat meal. Okay. Performing work on Friday afternoon, right? 30. Right, we should be careful not to get too involved in serious work, which could drag on going into Shabbat, right? And as people know, traveling a distant location Friday afternoon, 31. Look, as we know, one of the areas of Mesirut Nefesh. What's Mesirut Nefesh?
Something about saving a life.
Oh, so Nefesh
No,
is a life.
Life.
Yes. That's Pikuach Nefesh, is saving a life. Mesirat Nefesh is when you've got to really put out for something, right? You have to sacrifice, right? And one of those areas is Shabbos in the winter comes in at the very late time, late hour. Could be 4:15, 4:20, 4:25, 4:30. So a person needs to leave work early to make sure that one gets home in time for Shabbat. And often that can be a sore spot with one's employers, right? You're leaving already, other people, and yeah. Actually, right, today and tomorrow are the 14th and 15th of Adar, the month of Adar. So this year we have 2 months of Adar. So Purim will be the 14th and 15th of the second Adar. But we didn't say Tachanun, right, at Mincha, right, or at Shacharit, right? There's certain more somber parts of the tefillah, of the davening, which are omitted on these days. So one of the slanderings that Haman brought to King Achashverosh about the Jews is they're always taking off from work. They're saying Shabbat Hayom, Pesach Hayom, right? Oh, the lights go out. You know how to turn it back on, right?
As soon as you said Shabbat Hayom.
Yeah, see that? Thank you, Josh. Yeah, right. So that's an area of Mesirut Nefesh where a person, right, needs to make that sacrifice. Often it can get difficult with employers, right? My grandfather, alav hashalom, he came to the United States in the 1910s from Hungary, and then he had to work on Saturday. The only day off, I think, was a Sunday they would give a day off, but you expected to work Saturday. My grandfather would not work on Shabbos. So invariably, he was told, if you don't come on Saturday, then don't come on Monday. So he wouldn't come on Saturday. He would be let go and had to find another job. And finally, he was able to find a very, very benevolent boss who said, okay, don't come on Saturday, but come on Saturday night and work Saturday night and work all day Sunday. So he would basically, after Shabbos, he would go to the factory, wherever he was working. He would work almost through the night, sleep there for a few hours, work all day Sunday. But that was a gift because he wasn't getting fired for not working on Shabbos. And he was able to support the family. Yeah. Traveling to a distant location on Friday afternoon also, right? You don't want to, right, set out, whether it's traveling by car, flights, right? You don't want to have a flight that's landing, well, it's landing an hour before Shabbos or 2 hours before Shabbos, I should be fine. Yes, but there are often delays, right? So we want to play it safe, play it careful, play it respectfully. Okay. So the way this book is going to work its way through is, okay, we're going to have a few more things of these. Okay, then we're going to come to the 39 Malachot. What are these 39 Malachot? I'm not asking you to list them, but what are these 39 Malachot? Categories of work. Where do we derive them from? From the Mishkan, from the tabernacle. Yeah, right? When God created the world, he was creating a place for us in his domain. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, was us creating a place, a space for God in our world. So the Mishkan is our creating a place for God in our world. There's the domain, the realm of space, and there's the realm of time. Shabbos is our creating a place for God in the realm of time. Mishkan is in the realm of space. Shabbos is in the realm of time. And wherever we always see Shabbos and Mishkan in the Torah are always back to back. Shabbos and Mishkan are always, it's creating a space for God, and therefore we have that juxtaposition, and we learn out what are the creative activities that are prescribed from our performing them on Shabbat, those creative activities that went into the building of the Mishkan. So he's going to go through all 39 of them, and then he's going to go through those that are the most relevant to us and the most applicable to us, meaning we don't do much weaving, right? So all of those which have to do with weaving, right, are not necessarily entering into our week-to-week observance of Shabbat. Cooking, baking, oh boy, that is a major part of our Shabbat observance, okay? So we'll see all of that. So let's continue over here. Where were we? Chapter 2, 33, preparing for Shabbat. Okay, food preparations, 35. Cooking and baking done before Shabbat. Okay, we'll get to all of that. Keeping food warm. Okay, so if you want to keep, the food was cooked before Shabbat and you want to keep it warm, we don't keep it warm on an open flame. Why not?
Because you can't start a flame.
But I'm not starting it. I've got it running from before Shabbat.
You would have to extinguish it, maybe.
Transform.
Well, as long as it's set in motion before Shabbat, we're good to go. The concern is, the Gemara says, Shema, perhaps yechateh. I might come to stoke that flame. I might come to adjust the flame. It's not cooking fast enough. It's not getting hot enough. So what will I do in the time of the Talmud? I'll stoke the coals. In our world, what will we do? Turn up the fire. Okay? Therefore, we need to have some sort of a reminder a visual, clear reminder that it's Shabbat and we can't tinker. And that's what we call, I guess it's a Yiddish word that we use, which is the, right? I know that can be hard for people who are converting. I apologize. I didn't make the words, not me.
Say that
Okay.
one. I didn't hear it.
A blech.
Oh. Blech.
A blech. Yeah. Yes.
Before, like our modern black, like what was used in Talmudic times?
In Talmudic times, what they would do was, it's called grufa ketuma. They would have to sweep out. The way that it worked then was they had this chamber where they put in coals, and then a pot would sit on top of that. Okay, that was their stovetop of sorts, right? So grufa ketuma is they would need to sweep out the coals, and then put some, in case there's anything left in there, they would need to cover the coals with some earth, something that would help to quell those coals. And by doing that, there's less to stoke, and you have the visual reminder of, oh, right, I'm doing this in order to diminish the heat. I can't get in there now and start to stoke it to increase the heat. That's what was done. Then for us, we have a number of approaches. If you've got an actual flame that you're leaving on over Shabbos, it needs to be covered. And the kosher stores will sell a blech, a plate that goes on top. The stovetop that we have actually comes with like a griddle. Like the whole middle is a griddle for making, I don't know, waffles, whatever. So that's a heavy piece of metal. So we just turn on that middle flame, which is covered by that, and we'll put things on top of that griddle. One can also use a electric hot plate, okay? Because now, if it has controls, so then you would either take off the knob, right? Or turn it around so that the knob is facing the wall as opposed to facing out. Set it to whatever you're going to set it to. And that is also okay because that's not really used for cooking. That's just used for warming. Or a person can use a crock pot. If you want to put up something really usually for Shabbos day, a cholent of sorts, right? Part of a cholent. I told you guys that story, right? Yeah, right. So you want to have so there again, either take off that knob or turn it around so the knob is facing that wall, and that way you have your reminder that you're not going to fiddle with that in any manner. Okay. The source of heat on which the food is placed for the duration of Shabbat should be a special Shabbos hot plate or a metal sheet covering the stovetop, which we call that blech. Now, can I leave food in my oven and then I'll take it out when I'm leaving there before Shabbos and I'll take it out when I want to eat? Does that work?
No,
It does not work. Well,
it depends.
it depends. Danielle?
Yeah. Does it depend if it has a light?
Okay.
You have to take the light off.
So first of all, if your oven has a light that when you open the door, then of course you can't do that. Same thing with the refrigerator, right? Right? The refrigerator, the light goes on. So if the older fridges had an actual bulb, okay, so it's very easy to unscrew the bulb before Shabbos, so we should just unscrew it all week long. The newer refrigerators are mostly LED lights, which are a lot more challenging to disconnect. Now, how does the fridge know if the door is open or closed? So the older fridges had like a little button there, right? So what you can simply do before Shabbos, if you're fortunate enough to have a button, so then you would just tape that button in. In other words, when the button is in, the door is holding it in, so therefore the light is off, the door is closed. if you take that button, then even when you open the door, the fridge light stays off. The newer refrigerators don't have that little button. So how does the refrigerator know if it's open or closed? Magnetized. There's a magnet in the door, right? So when the door closes, it magnetizes and the light goes off. When the door opens, it demagnetizes and the light goes on. So if you can get, and more of these refrigerators have a Shabbat mode.
I saw that. Marticon has one.
Yeah, we have Shabbat mode.
It's a button.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You think, right, is it worth it for GE or, right, is it worth it to them? Right? Are there enough people who want the Shabbat mode? Is it worth their while? We have to understand everything now is computerized. It's not a big deal to have a setting that will turn it into a mode where the light stays off. It's not a big deal for them. It's not like they're making a whole new line of refrigerators for the Orthodox Jewish world, right? On ours, there's not a button that says Shabbat. There are 4 buttons on top. If you hold these 2 down together for 15 seconds, all of a sudden the light goes off and it says Shab, SHB up there, right? So it's not like there's, I don't want to Shab. What do I need? It's not. It's just part of the engineering that goes into it. So if you don't have a Shabbat mode, and something that I do, which is a good idea, and it's just a good idea in general to do things like this, right? So we have to remember to turn it off before Shabbos. Every week we have to remember to make sure we turn off the fridge lights and the freezer lights. So you always want to try to connect it to something else that you have to do before Shabbos. So when I set the candles for Natalie to light Shabbos candles, I turn one of them upside down.
Oh, okay.
And that way, if she's going to light candles and she sees the upside down candle, she can't light the candle until she turns it over, obviously. And she knows, that's the reminder. Are the lights off in the fridge and the freezer? Okay? And that way, right, it forces you that you're not going to go into Shabbos without lighting the candles, and therefore you've got that set reminder. If you don't have Shabbat mode, and we were staying in a house that didn't have a Shabbat mode, and it was a very fancy new refrigerator, so I went to Ace Hardware. I bought a bunch of strong magnets, and you have to figure it out. But basically, on top there, right, you have to find the spot where you put that magnet, and that way it magnetizes. It thinks the door is closed because it's getting magnetized, and open or close, the light stays off. We went to Israel. We stayed at a place, and it seemed that there was a light in the fridge. So we called. It was a religious. So we called and said they sent a technician to turn off the light. And it seemed he had done it, but I forget exactly how it worked. There was a light. I forget. There was something going on with the light that I wasn't sure. So I put my cell phone on video, and I put it into the refrigerator, and I closed it, and then I was able to see what's really happening when we're opening. Because by the time you open it, it's ready to, right? And we saw that in fact it did go back on and it did come back off. Right? So we had to call the guy back and work on it. Actually, I think Natalie, she's very handy. I think Natalie was on set. She just took care of it and figured out how to detach the LED. Okay, so we're coming back to the oven. So if the light's going on with the oven, of course it's a non-starter. Even if you don't have a light in the oven, or if you turn off the light in the oven, if the oven is on, the moment you open up an oven, the fires ignite. It's not like a refrigerator. A refrigerator, the moment you open the door, the compressor doesn't go on right away. Right? It will take a while for the temperature, because the outside, the temperature in your house is 70, and in the refrigerator, what is it? Let's say 40.
40
Okay,
40
so you
or
have a
below.
30. Okay, let's say it's even 35, right? So you have a 30 to 35 degree difference between the room and the refrigerator. That's not such a tremendous difference that the moment you open the door, the refrigerator needs to start working to maintain its temperature. Whereas the oven is 350, 400. So you have a 250, 300 degree difference between the temperature in the oven and the temperature outside. Therefore, the moment you open the door, what does the oven need to do? It needs to kick on to maintain its temperature. So if the oven is on, it is an absolute no-go. You can't ever put food into an oven on Shabbos, even if it's off, because that will come to a concept that looks like cooking. But let's say I left the food in there before Shabbos, and I have it set to a timer, and it's going to go off before I need to take out the food. If the oven's going to be off and no light is going on, then my opening the door is not activating a light, it's not activating the heating elements. It doesn't look like cooking because I'm not putting food in, I'm taking food out. So in such a situation, a person can use the oven by putting food in there before Shabbos and making sure it's off when you're going to be opening it up and taking the food out. But you can't put the food back into the oven because that appears like cooking. That's one of the cardinal principles that we'll come to as we move along. Okay.
Can I ask a question really
Of
quick?
course.
Rabbi, I have a question.
Just 1 second, Rose, because Jackie started, and then Rose, it's yours.
So
Yes.
Jenny brought this up to me because before, like, we would cook all the food and then leave it in the oven and then take it out and then we would be done. But Jenny brought this up to me. She's really smart. So if I left say I cooked potatoes and meat and everything, and then I left it at 150 or like 200 to keep it warm. After Shabbat, I take it out. After I like
After Shabbat begins.
Yeah. So wouldn't that technically still be cooking? Because it's still at a low temperature, so like low and slow. She asked me, wouldn't that technically be breaking Shabbos because I'm cooking food still?
Okay. So as long as it was placed in there before Shabbat,
Okay.
you are okay.
Okay.
Because you're not doing an act of cooking on Shabbat.
Okay.
Okay? There does needs to be continuing to cook on Shabbat in a way that we're not concerned that you might come to change the flame.
Like the
And
crock pot you said.
right, and that's why we take right. But she's right, but it's okay. She's right that it could be a concern, but the halacha is as long as we did it all before Shabbat, then we are okay.
Okay, so take it out. But if I were like you said before, like say that I fed everybody, now I'm putting all the food away and I cover it and I put it back in, it's still low.
Back in where?
In the oven.
On Shabbos, no.
Okay.
We can't.
Now that I say it out loud,
Right.
I'm thinking that's what
Right.
her point was.
Right. We can't go back.
So after I take it out, that's it.
Correct.
So okay.
Correct. If it's fully cooked and you want to use it the next day, then you might be able to leave it on the blech, on the metal sheet, or on a hot plate.
But you don't physically open it, put it back in, and then.
But you can't put it back into that oven. If the oven is on, you can't even take it out because you can't even open the door, right? If the oven is off, but it's still hot, right? You still don't want to put it back in there to keep it warm. Let's say, I know your daughter told me that she wants to come to shul Friday night, right? She apologized.
Let me tell you, like,
She apologized. She missed last Friday night.
She's awesome. All
Yeah.
of my kids are awesome.
Yes.
She's just like super special.
Yeah. So let's say, right, Shabbos begins, and Danielle, you're feeding the younger kids, right? And they're going to go to sleep, right? And then Daryl and Jaden are coming home, and the older crew is going to eat. So there, you would not be able to take, even the oven is off, you could take it out to feed the younger kids. You would not be able to put it back in to keep it warm. You'll be able to put it on top of a blech, on top of a hot plate, but it can't go back into the oven. Okay. Okay, all the hot water, still on 36, all the hot water needed for drinking and food purposes on Shabbos should be boiled in advance. It should then be kept hot in a Shabbos kettle or urn placed on the Shabbos hot plate or the metal sheet. Okay? Ideally, all the food should be fully cooked before Shabbos. If it's not fully cooked before Shabbos, but it was set into motion before Shabbos, and it's being continued to cook in a manner that we're not concerned that Shema Yecheta, that you might come to stoke the flames, then we are good. Rose, you had a question.
Yes, Rabbi, I just had a question about sorry. So,
We lost you, Rose.
so I just had a question about the Shabbat mode on an elevator. So I remember when I was in Israel and I was staying at a hotel, and then there was a Shabbat mode on the elevator. How does that work?
Okay, good. Elevators. Okay. So an escalator is not a problem. It's doing what it's doing. And if you get on, it'll continue doing what it's doing. It's not doing anything for you. Going into an elevator, pressing the buttons, that certainly is a problem. So there is a Shabbos elevator mode that some religious hotels or buildings with a lot of religious, right? How does a Shabbos elevator work? Well, actually, basically, it stops without you doing anything. It'll start up at the lobby, right? And it'll be there for 40 seconds. When it's about to close, it'll start to, you know, it's about to close. You go in, let's say it's a 20-story building. Right. So typically, they're not going to have it go to first floor, stop, open, 30 seconds later, second floor. Typically, what they'll do is they'll have it go all the way up to the 20th floor and then start working its way down. Okay, because it's right. If I run out of patience, easier to go down than to go up. So go up to the top floor, and then it will go down often 2 floors at a time. And a person then, right, if it stops on the 18th floor, I'm the same. Like get up, I walk down 1 flight of steps, right? I'm getting impatient. I'm on the 11th floor. I'll get out the 17th floor and I'll walk down 6 flights. It's not a big deal, right? But that's how they normally do it. But the way it's arranged, Rose, is that there is no intervention that anybody does. It is set and it just keeps going through that pattern. And that way you are not changing anything. It becomes almost like an escalator. That it's doing what it's doing and you are hopping in and taking you. It's not doing anything special for you. Okay?
So I have a question, Alex.
Yes.
So technology doesn't always work the way we expect it to, and so there's the off chance, like even with the Shabbos mode, like say the timer, for the refrigerator, like the light comes on, or even if the electricity goes out and then the fridge turns off and it's Shabbos, and then it restarts when the electricity comes back on, and then now it no longer recognizes that it's in Shabbos, and it's like malfunctions happen, etc. So you get on an escalator and then it stops working and then it restarts. I mean, what do you do? Like, is that
Okay. So, well,
that?
first of all, the escalator, if it stops working, it just became a staircase. So carry on as usual. If it starts working again, it's not because you were on it, right? That's all happening regardless of you, right? The refrigerator, well, you have it on Shabbos mode, but maybe it's going to go off of Shabbos mode. Maybe electricity to go off and come back on on Shabbos mode. Look, maybe it's going to go off of Shabbos mode. There's no reason to assume it will. You don't want to make yourself crazy.
I had a question for
Okay? Okay? In other words, right? There's no reason to assume it's going to just go off of Shabbos mode, the same way it doesn't just go on to Shabbos mode. Right? If electricity does go off and comes back on, okay, so maybe you wouldn't use the refrigerator for the next few hours until Shabbos ends. And then out of curiosity, you'll open the door and you'll say, oh, we still in Shabbos mode? Okay, good. Now I know for next time. But we live according to what's going to be normal. And we don't get too bent out of shape that, oh no, but who knows, maybe that happened. If it's 1 in a million, chances are it won't be this week or the next week after. Yeah.
I have a question for you. Okay. In the Friday, in the Shabbat, we cannot turn on the lights, correct? I was thinking about Alexa and about the smart lights.
Okay.
And put it on in my house and I say, Alexa,
Okay.
turn it off the lights.
Good. Okay. So Elizabeth is asking, right? How about, I can't turn the lights on Shabbat, but I'm not turning it on. Alexa, Siri, right, and all of our other little electrical servants, right? Is that okay? So that's why it's important, what I said before, right? Shabbos is not about the work. It's not the work. It is my changing the natural world around me to suit my needs, right? So therefore, the same way that turning on a light switch, well, with the new technology, hey Google, right? Play this, right? Is clearly my changing the world around me, right? Suit my needs, my showing my mastery, my technological mastery over this world. And Shabbos is not the time for us to show our mastery, but it's time to acknowledge the master. Okay? So sorry. Alexis, I don't mean to put Alexis out of business over here, but it's a no-go.
Any preparation prior to Shabbos, timers, stuff like that, that's all.
Yes. Put your lights onto a Shabbos timer before Shabbos.
Yeah.
That's fine. Right? We use a timer. Yeah, we use timers. We use timers you can use a timer for your hot plate, timer for lights, right? You set your thermostat for the heat or the air conditioning, and that's on autopilot, right? That is fine. That is absolutely fine.
Like the sun didn't create on Shabbat, but everything was set in motion. Like the
Good.
sun, the moon, and everything.
Yeah.
Correct. Right? The sun still rose Saturday morning, right? It was set already on the timer, on the Shabbos clock. Yes.
Quick question. How do you go about alarms for like Saturday morning?
Okay. So Daryl asks, how do you go about alarms for Shabbos morning?
Shabbos alarm.
Right? So thank God over the years I've developed an amazing inner clock. And I'm able to wake up off my Shabbos nap in time for Mincha, Shabbos morning. Yeah. Thank God. Baruch Hashem. There are a number of options until your Shabbos clock gets fully set, your inner Shabbos clock. There are these wind-up clocks. I don't know if they still sell them. I had one like 40 years ago. But there are these wind-up clocks which have like a little wind-up alarm. And it goes off and right, and it goes off. Right? That's one thing you can do. When I was now in today's, I don't have that anymore. I have my smartphone, right? So what one can do is you can set your smartphone to go off, right? Mm-hmm. I think it will ring for about 15 minutes, and then if you don't turn it off, then it will go off. Okay. You might want to set it not next to Danielle, who doesn't need to wake up. You might want to set it right outside your room, and you'll hear it. But when you don't turn it off, it will not be incredibly annoying to whoever's left over there, right? You might want to put it in a drawer that's pulled out, and then Once it rings, take your pillow and then another pillow and put it on top, and that will help muffle the sound,
Oh, okay.
right? You can set it before Shabbos. Now, I don't know. There probably isn't some sort of a hack setting that you could set the alarm to go on and only last for a certain period of time. I'm sure there's an app,
I was just
Shabbos clock app.
Yeah.
There's got to be a Shabbos clock app that will ring for 5 minutes and then stop ringing. Okay? So that's going to be the homework assignment, okay? To find the Shabbos clock app, right? That will ring for 5 minutes and it'll go off without you having to touch the phone and to turn it off.
Oh, there is one?
How many are there?
Yeah.
There's two.
Two?
Yeah.
What are they called?
Shabbat alarm clock, and it seemed like the most popular one. It has 5 stars, 116.
Okay.
Can you send it to us?
So yeah, I'll put it in the.
Yeah, take a screenshot and then post that on the Jewish
Well, I
Journey.
never thought to even look
I
at
have a
Yeah.
question, just going back
Yes.
to the hot plates. I heard that when you do have a hot plate, it always has to be covered though. Is that true?
Okay. So Danielle asked, does the hot plate need to be covered? Okay. Why would it need to be covered? Because it needs like a blech on top. There are those who take that stringent approach. I would say normative halacha is that what is a hot plate? It's a heating element that's under that metal covering on top, right? And it's not used for cooking. It's used for heating. So therefore, normative halacha is that a hot plate does not need to be covered. Okay? Now, with that having been said, we usually do cover ours with aluminum foil. Not for Shabbos reasons, but that way in case something spills, it's a lot easier to throw out the aluminum foil, right? And when we want to use it for Pesach and we're going to pour boiling hot water on it, right? It's a lot easier knowing that it's perfectly clean and no food has gotten baked into it. So it might be I think it's a good idea to cover with aluminum foil, but it's not that you need to do that for Shabbos blech, right? Metal pan covering, but rather it's just practical good advice to make your life easier, right? A lot easier to throw out aluminum foil than to stand there trying to scrub with, to try to get that off. Right? Who needs that?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll pick up on 37 next week, guys. Okay. Yeah, Shikoach, everybody. Good seeing everybody. How's everybody feeling? Everyone doing okay? Good. Okay. Good night. Rose, good to see you. Welcome back. Good. Okay. Good night, Susie, Leah, everyone else. Linda, thanks for joining us. Good. Okay. Good night. Everybody. Guys, a few left over here. Everyone wants another one?
I'll take it.
There you go.
Since I have another person inside.
That's it. You're eating for two.
That's right. Thank you.
But Joe, you don't have that excuse. But nevertheless, I twisted your arm.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Amazing. There are 3 of us left. And there are 3 of them over here. So,
Thank you. That's not why we came. I'm so sorry. We don't want to take up much of your time.
Rabbi, I have a question.
yes, Simone.
Our oven has Shabbat mode. We don't use, but I was curious to see how that works. I didn't know about not putting food on an oven.
Your oven has Shabbat mode. Yes, so you said it's Shabbat mode, and that way, even if it's on and you take the food out, the light won't go on and the fire won't flare up. But you shouldn't be putting food back in, even with Shabbat mode. We also have Shabbat mode on our ovens, and it's great. Like that, the oven can be on. We can make sure the food is piping hot. Opening the door does not fire it up, does not turn on the light. But putting food back in, that's problematic, because that looks like then you're cooking on Shabbos.
That would be like a situation you use it would be for like maybe on Saturday, like you could have it. Would it make sense to cold temperature through Shabbat? I'm trying to think like, do you use Shabbos mode on a Friday night or is that food?
Oven?
Yeah. Or
Fine.
do you put food? No, so it doesn't stay overnight because it would just
No.
totally roast the food.
Okay, good night, Simone.
Okay.